Something just hit me relevant to my video or my monologue on spiritual deception that I recently uploaded. One of the things that I was saying is that experience, that sequence of experiences over multiple years and the way that shit all unfolded revealed to me the importance, the profundity of discernment. And as I'm sitting here, it just occurred to me, I still don't know that I know how to discern in the spiritual realm. Discernment of humans is challenging enough in and of itself because people will wear a mask and actually be something other than what they're presenting. And I'll be honest with you, most of what I was referring to when I think about what I said had the context for discernment in the physical realm of physical 3D beings, the good ones versus the evil ones, that kind of thing. But being the beings that we are, with all these intangible aspects of us that can be so heavily manipulated or attacked by the unseen forces, if we are to believe that there is quote-unquote good out there in the spiritual realm and evil, I mean, it seems plausible, but it's so easy and obvious to see the evil or the manifestations of that. But I'll be damned, man, it's so much harder to see the good. But when you are at a place of your journey of life that has incorporated, opened up for you, a spiritual walk, if you will, I still, with the experiences that I have had, the synchronicities that clearly manifested in my life over a long period of time, so something was trying to get my attention. And I just assumed it was something good. And based off of my experiences looking back, oh wow, is it easy to conclude it was something that just played a part? I don't know. And the part being bringing these synchronicities relevant to healer, which would be a good benevolent thing to do. So you'd think it would be a good benevolent force that was out there causing it to happen. But looking back on the experiences that manifested from that, it has brought me to question, was it something evil, malignant, that just was doing it deceptively and knew I wouldn't perceive it one way or the other? Which brings to question, or it brings to my mind, discernment of the beings in the spiritual realm. You see what I'm saying? And like I said, it's hard enough to discern people, but there's these things that we can get, like a little feeling, your gut, this, that, and the other. And that, most of that, for me anyway, I have that frame of reference in the physical 3D with physical 3D beings. When we're talking about something that we can't see, spirit forces, quote unquote, oh, that's a whole different level. And if evil's out there, as much as good is, assuming it's a 50-50 thing, and I'm just using that to illustrate the point, I really don't know what ratio it would exist in. How in the hell are we supposed to know? Can't see it. Sometimes people hear or have experiences, but I felt like my set of synchronicities was something good doing it because of the context of it, healer. You'd never think something evil would bring something like that to you, but what if it did? And I made a lot of assumptions that caused me an awful lot of pain and caused me to do things that, looking back at it, I feel like a fool on some levels. On other levels, my heart was in the right place, and I really was willing to do what I did by making the sacrifices that I did. You'd think something out there good would have noticed that, even if it wasn't something good that was causing those synchronicities to happen. You'd think something, quote-unquote, benevolent out there, even if it didn't lift a finger to let me know I was being deceived. You'd think it would have maybe taken note of that. I don't know. I just have so many massive question marks in my head about discernment relevant to the spiritual realm. How in the hell do you actually discern something that you can't see, that in this example is evil, yet is doing things, causing things to manifest that someone like myself would never have a reason to suspect, that the genesis of these happenings could be something wholly evil that is quite literally being crafty and cunning and is basically working you slowly to deceive you on a profound level to ultimately take you out slowly over time. How does the human discern that? That's a big, big, big flashing neon question mark in my head. And then this idea of faith, it's believing in something that you cannot see. Yet it feels almost foolish to do that, blind faith or any faith at all, with something you can't see, feel, sense, touch, that may not have established a connection with you or you with it. And if it's something you can't see and you're trying to establish a connection with it, and there's evil out there that knows that these little meat sacks are going to try and connect or call out to the divine or whatever benevolent thing people believe are out there, how easy would it be for something in the spirit realm that was evil to just play that part and do the things that are necessary to deceive one, lead them down a path of their own destruction and being devoured. And if there's nothing, if what's good out there won't actually lift a finger to what? Let us know it's there, to show us that it's there in some way, to somehow let us know how to communicate with it in some meaningful way. It just seems to me that it makes human beings so goddamn vulnerable to deception. It's actually kind of sickening to me the more I think about it. It's really easy to identify, well, it can be an awful lot easier to identify the quote-unquote evil. But just because it can be easier doesn't mean it's a given, especially if it's working to deceive you. The same way the covert narcissist would. They put on a mask and pretend to be something that they're not, and then at some point the big reveal happens, and in a lot of cases that is a devastating blow to the person that was on the other, the receiving end of it. You see what I mean? So as challenging as it can be to discern in this world relevant to the humans, the meat sacks that walk this earth, oh fuck man, how much more challenging and how much more skilled and tuned in and whatever else it might be does the human have to be to accurately, appropriately discern the quote-unquote benevolent forces or beings in the spirit realm, in the unseen realms, and all that kind of stuff that humans believe that they are there. They're guiding us, protecting us, or whatever. Or is that just a belief and it's not true? And I'm just still trying to logic and reason and wrestle with a deception that we've been given. I mean, look at what happens on the world. Look at the concept of the Loosh farm. Look at the concept of what has been happening to the children of the human species for all these generations and thousands of years. For all those things to be taking place on this planet, it really does beg the question, how benevolent is the supposed benevolent forces out there? How much do they really give a shit about us? Why do we not see any kind of intervention from those benevolent forces in the unseen realms? If we're still in too much of a degraded or ignorant state to accurately discern and all this stuff, you'd think something in the good would be, well, an awful lot easier to identify and discern than it would appear that it actually is. I would bet you $1 bill that a lot of people out there that believe they're hearing from their guardians or their guides, and I can't poo-poo everybody, because maybe there are people who have nailed it and got it and they're like, yep, I got my thing. But a lot of people probably think when they think they're hearing from God or from quote-unquote spirit, they always think it's probably an assumption based off of belief that they're hearing from something good, or that they're being, whatever it might be, communicated with, looked out for by something good. And I suppose there's something to be said by you will know them by their fruit. That probably applies with us and working with or dealing with spirit, entities, forces, guardians, blah, 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 angels, guides, whatever these things could potentially be if they're even real. You'd think it would be easier to identify that fruit, so to speak, than the rotten fruit of the evil. But if the evil can play the part and show you good fruit, even though it's a deception, meaning the fruit's real in this context, but it's being offered as a deception further down the road. Wow, that really, really, really at least makes me stop and pause and be like, holy shit, we really don't know. We are really, really vulnerable. And wow, I mean, wow. Maybe they're not spirits, maybe they're aliens with technology and they can do the Spock mind meld, or they're telepathic, or they're clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairsentient, I don't know. And they have the ability to project all that stuff. Who knows? We've got so much information and so much deception, and so few people seem to truly know. It seems clear to me that the God of the Bible is a real unpleasant thing. Clearly the dark side is an unpleasant thing. Clearly the Jews have been in the boots on the ground down here deceiving the ever-loving shit out of humans, so that for so many of us, no matter how much knowledge we think we have, it's still, you come to realize what we don't know, especially in a world where we've been deceived for as long as we have. What is the right and proper foundation of truth for us to base everything else upon? The benevolent versus the evil, all that stuff. I don't know if this showcases my spiritual immaturity, spiritual ignorance, or what, or if it's showcasing that I'm asking some deeper questions about a lot of the shit that humans believe. And when you start asking these questions, not all the answers that you might initially think make an awful lot of sense, especially if what you need for something to make sense is an awful lot more than something that is blind belief, blind faith, belief in something that you've never seen, heard from, and most of the times those beliefs are coming by way of somebody else giving you information they want you to believe. So it really starts begging an awful lot of questions that I don't think an awful lot of humans ask. I'm sure there have been some at points along the way of, the human journey. But I'd say it was a select few, a very small micro percentage of the grand whole. Anyway, this is just a whole nother level or layer that I just stumbled upon in my efforts to contemplate and understand all the shit that goes on here. And I guess after what I've gone through since I walked into the Amazon, looking back on the whole thing, these are the types of questions I have, or that have come to me. Why in the hell would it be so challenging to discern in the spiritual realm? Well, I guess why is a dumb question, because if it's challenging enough to do in the 3D with humans, well, it just adds orders of magnitude of complexity when you're dealing with things you can't see and you just have to believe in. You know what I mean? In a realm full of deception and inversions and illusions and deceptions and blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Where do you start with that? How do you get your first, okay, there's something good. I know it's good. Because of something that happens, reveals itself to you, I don't know, where you then no longer have doubt relevant to that. Oh, don't doubt, have faith. See, that seems to be contradictory, because faith is blind belief in something that you've never seen. And if we don't have as much, if it's so hard to see the evidence of the benevolent forces here, but it's really easy to see the evidence of the evil forces here. Yeah, it's like, whoa. So why, if there's this benevolent spirit force and all that stuff, why in the hell do they have such an ability to manipulate or influence our lives, if that's the way that works, yet have such a soft voice, subtle voice, versus the evil, which can come like a bull in a china closet and scream in your face, so to speak, and it's really easy to identify that. You see what I'm saying? I'm just like, wow. And with regards to this, it's just like, I don't know what to believe. I don't know where to start with this whole concept of spiritual discernment, let alone trusting something in the unseen that you haven't had some kind of a direct personal experience with. Now, here's another interesting thing relevant to that. Through my shamanic work, I had direct personal experience with those mantids. During those experiences, I never once, at the time that was all happening, got the sense that I was dealing with negative entities. It could have been nothing more than my naivety that gave me that sense, or my inability to discern, because after the mantids, Well, there was the German woman that ended up being a narcissist and ghosting me. And I've just had so much unpleasant shit unfold. It's just like, huh, were they actually good? Or could beings like that just send you all kinds of energy that makes you think they're good, and then behind them, with their ability to send you that good energy, they still have malevolent intentions, and it's just them paving the road for you to, take your guard down, believe or trust them. And yeah, it's like, wow, how the fuck do you discern good versus evil when you're on a spiritual walk or spiritual path with shit you can't see that you haven't had direct experiences with? And like I said, I had direct experiences with those mantids, but now I'm sitting here on the fence where, because I had so much in the way of negative things happen thereafter, I struggle to, even now, discern whether or not those mantids were benevolent or malevolent. And I've heard only a few stories where these mantids were 10th or 11th or higher level dimensional beings that were actually benevolent. Not like us, they didn't feel and stuff like that in the way that we do, but they were so evolved that, well, let's just say they're not malevolent. They may not care too much about us one way or another, but they're not malevolent. Who the hell knows? It just blows me away that when I really sit and think about this whole discernment thing relevant to the spiritual realms, how complex and complicated that actually might be, and what kind of foundation we need to actually have in order to accurately do that, in order to accurately discern. I don't even know what that foundation needs to look like. I mean, in a 3D, I can say, yeah, you want to do this, you need a foundation of knowledge relevant to this and that. You want to do that, you need a foundation of knowledge relevant to this and this. But when you're talking about a non-physical thing, like discernment of non-physical beings, entities, energies, good versus bad, malevolent versus benevolent, yada, yada, yada. Whoa. Yeah, what's the foundation of information you need to have in order to start doing that accurately? Anyway, just some food for thought. Take it easy, people.
This world is not what you think it is. This world is not what you think it is. This world is not what you think it is. This world is not what you think it is. This world is not what you think it is. This world is not what you think it is.